I was originally going to talk about something a little different. And then last night, while I was reflecting on my life, I became a little overwhelmed with gratefulness when I realized that almost doesn't count. I don't know if you've ever had a situation like that. And so I really want to talk to those of you that have had an almost moment. And if you don't know what I mean like if you've almost lost your life, if you've almost lost your mind or lost your family, or you thought you were about to almost lose your purpose, or everything that you had planned for, you were about to almost lose. And maybe when you look back over your life, you can probably count more almost than you can actually explain. And if this is you, then I want you to know that this is your reminder that almost doesn't count. And see, almost doesn't count when God still has an assignment attached to your life. And trust me, I know a little something about almost. This month marks 17 years since I was in an accident that I was told should have or could have taken my life. And what makes this story even more interesting is what I was doing when the accident took place. I wasn't headed to some random place. I was actually headed to advocate for a new legislative policy designed to help homeless youth. I was doing something productive. I was advocating for young people who were vulnerable, young people who needed somebody to speak up for them. So while I'm headed to do this, I'm driving and I'm thinking about all the things that I was going to say, and I'm thinking about the right words, and I'm thinking about how I can explain the need in such a way that it has the strongest impact and makes the best case, and how can I create the best possible outcome, because I thought I was headed to a meeting that might change the lives of a lot of young people. But what I didn't know is that I was headed into an experience that was going to change my life. So as I'm driving, somebody runs a light and they hit me. And the impact didn't stop at the first collision. In return, I hit 5 other things. Yes, 5. And somehow, I'm still talking to you 17 years later. Now, when something like that happens, you can look at it in one or two ways. You can look at it and look at everything that you lost, or eventually, I put the word eventually, you can start asking, what didn't I lose? Because I could have lost my life, but I didn't. I could have lost my ability to fulfill my purpose, but I didn't. My life changed, and my body changed. My perspective even changed. Even my understanding of God changed. But somehow, I was still here. I'm still here. And that's why I want to talk to that somebody that has their own almost. Because maybe what happened to you was unexpected, like me. Maybe it wasn't your fault. Maybe you were doing everything that you knew to do right. And maybe you were headed in the right direction when somebody else's decision changed the trajectory of your life. Maybe you were building something awesome when somebody tore it down. Or maybe you were loving somebody when that somebody betrayed you. You could be a person that worked hard and then you got laid off. Or just maybe you were believing God when the thing you prayed wouldn't happen, happened anyway. And like me, you're sitting here and you've wondered, God, why did you let this happen to me? I understand that question. I understand that question all too well because I asked it too. But then I learned that even though the accident was real, it wasn't the end. And I'm not even going to sit here and try to romanticize what happened to me, because trust me, it wasn't easy. It's still not easy. It still bothers me. But 17 years ago, God kept me alive. And even though he kept me alive, everything still isn't that simple, because there were consequences. There were things that I had to learn. There were things that I had to relearn. There were things that I had to learn about myself and things that I had to confront. And there were things about God that I had to discover and rediscover, because sometimes surviving doesn't mean you immediately understand it. Sometimes you just have to survive it first and understand it later. And that's where Psalms 118:17 becomes so powerful. See, the psalmist says, he says, I shall not die, but live and declare the works of the Lord. And if you've had an almost moment, then go ahead and just declare that over your life. But don't just read that verse without understanding the full context. Because see, the psalmist, he wasn't talking from a place of comfort. He was talking about being surrounded. And he talks about being pushed hard. And he talks about nearly falling. And in other words, the danger that he was experiencing or facing was real. The pressure was for real. The possibility of falling, that was real too. But see, it wasn't the end. And that's what I want you to understand. I want you to understand that something can be real without being final. My accident was real. My pain is real. The disruption in my life was real. The consequences, yeah, they were real too. But none of those things had the authority to declare that my story was over, and neither is yours. And this is the part that I really want somebody to catch. I really want you to catch this. See, think about this. Think about where I was going when the accident happened. I was going to advocate for people, for young people who needed somebody to speak for them. And then suddenly I became the person whose life needed advocacy. See, the meeting wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I never made the meeting because my life took a turn, and it never became what I thought it was going to be. But here's what I learned. I learned that an interruption isn't always cancellation, because sometimes life interrupts our plans, but God never cancels our purpose. You may lose the job. You can lose the relationship, lose the house, or lose an opportunity, or possibly you could have lost some years. But don't confuse what changed with what ended, because sometimes the chapter changes, but the assignment remains the same. Here's why I love the word almost. I love the word almost because it means it got close, but it didn't finish the job. Almost lost my life, but I'm still alive. Almost broke me, but I'm still standing. Almost made me give up, but I'm still moving. It almost made me lose my faith, yet I'm still believing. It almost made me stop dreaming, but my dreams are even bigger. And maybe, just maybe that's you, and you need to recognize that about your own story. You keep focusing on how close you came to losing something or everything, but you're overlooking the fact that you didn't. And that's what almost means. It means something came so close that it scared you. It came so close that it could hurt you. So close that it changed you, but not close enough to finish you. And I had to learn something else. There's something else I had to learn. I had to learn that there's a difference between me saying, this happened to me, and me saying, this is who I am. The accident happened to me, but I'm not the accident. The pain I still feel, but I'm not the pain. And whatever happened to you may be a part of your story, but it doesn't get to become the entire identity of who you are, because God knew who you were before the very thing happened, and He's still God after it happened. So guess what? You're still who God created you to be. So maybe you aren't who you thought you would be, or maybe you're still healing, or maybe you're just still asking God questions. And that's okay, because you can still be trying to figure out what the experience meant. But what you don't have to do is you don't have to give into it, because you don't have to have your entire testimony figured out. You're still here. And sometimes the greatest evidence that God isn't through with us is simply the fact that we are still here, that we're still breathing, that we're still trying, that we're still learning, that we're still becoming, still loving, still dreaming, still believing, still standing. Still. That word matters, because still means something. It means something happened, but that something didn't finish you. 17 years later, when I think about the accident, I don't feel the same way that I used to. I'm not pretending that it didn't change me, because it did, but it didn't get to define me. And maybe that's the encouragement that somebody needs today. You may have experienced something that changed your life forever. But changed doesn't mean finished. Delayed doesn't mean denied, and interrupted doesn't mean canceled. But most importantly, remember, almost doesn't count. Because if God isn't through with you, then the thing that almost took you out doesn't get to write the final chapter. Remember, Psalms 118:17 says, I shall not die, but live and declare the works of the Lord. There's a reason that you're still here. There's still a story that you haven't told. There's still wisdom that you've yet to share. There's still healing that you're still walking into. There's still purpose on the other side of what happened. So stop calling yourself what almost happened to you. You're not the failure. You're not the loss or the disappointment. You're the person who survived it. And if you're still standing, then there's still something God can do with your life. So today, don't focus only on what almost happened. Look at what didn't happen. Your assignment didn't die. Your purpose, it didn't die. Your dream, still alive. It may look different. And you didn't die. You're still here. And if you're still here, God's not done with you yet. He's not done with you yet. Because almost doesn't count. So God, we thank you that our story is incomplete and almost doesn't count. Until next week, if this encouraged you or blessed you, or if you just know someone that's facing an almost moment and needs to hear this, Don't be stingy. Bless them and share it with them.